Hi, I'm Vernita. I am the host of SWAT with Survivors with Testimony and Awareness, virtually from our table to your table. Um, just to tell you just a little bit about who I am a mother, I am a wife, I am an author, I am the founder of SWAT, which is Survivors with a Testimony. I'm certified in many things, but what I love the most is spreading awareness, and I love who I serve, which is Christ Jesus. Tonight, we're going to be talking about domestic violence and spiritual abuse. Spiritual abuse is a form of psychological manipulation used by abusers to coerce their victims into compliance by using religious beliefs as a leverage. Domestic violence assessment for females, 1 in 7 are abused by their intimate. But tonight we have some evangelists and reverends that's going to come tonight to spread awareness on domestic violence and spiritual abuse. I have my co-host with me tonight. Her name is Kay, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Kay Hennett. As Miss Renita said, I'm also a mom. I'm a grandmom. I'm a mama five grandmom and a writer um, and going getting myself together to become a life coach. So it's nice meeting everybody, and I'm looking forward to tonight's topic.
And
Evangelist Knight.
my name is Evangelist Margaret Knight. I am a member of the Anglican Chapel Missionary Baptist Church, along with Minister Howard, and our pastor is the Reverend Malcolm Lewis, the father of Reverend Marcus Lewis. Um, I too am a mother. I have 2 children. I am a grandmother. I have got 4 grandchildren, expecting my 5th one in June.
Oh.
Um, I'm a friend. I'm a confidant. I'm a helper. I'll do whatever I can to help a person, so long as my help does not hinder them in their growth. I always try to make sure that my help is not a crutch, but it's a step up, much rather than holding them back. So I'm willing to help anyone at any time.
Evangelist Tasha.
Hello, I'm Evangelist Tasha McCann. I am an evangelist. I'm also a screenwriter. I write plays. Do performing arts in the community. Um, I'm a survivor of abuse. I'm a single mother of 2 boys. And I use my ministry and my plays to help the community. Um, and I enjoy it.
Reverend Lewis.
My name is Reverend Marquess Lewis. I am not a mother. I'm not a father. I'm a husband, though. Um, like Evangelist Knight said, my father is the Reverend Malcolm Lewis, Sister Howard's pastor, and Evangelist Knight's pastor. He's also the pastor of St. Stephen's Missionary Baptist Church in Goldsboro. And I am just a lovable, cuddly teddy bear, as my wife puts it. But I also am a person who loves the Lord. I too am a survivor of abuse. Yes, men can be abused too, and I'm just happy to be here to help add whatever I can add, whatever I'm supposed to talk. I'm not crazy enough to try to over talk you ladies, so I'm just gonna be in my corner. And if it's my turn, just point at me.
That sounds like he's been married for over 5 years.
So we're gonna go into it directly into here. Um, what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is abuse from your intimate partner. It could be hitting, spitting, kicking. It could be verbal. It could be financial. It could be emotional, psychological. And as we're here now, it can definitely be spiritual, where they'll use your religion against you. You will have to make a choice based on, if pretty much if you're going to serve them or serve your spiritual father. It don't just happen in Christianity. It can happen in any religion. And so we want to go tonight, and we want to just talk about a couple of different things, especially in the faith-based community. Um, so I'm gonna ask Kay to go ahead and ask a few questions, and then we'll piggyback. We'll go back and forth.
Okay, so some of you may be wondering why I'm on here. I met Miss Vanita through my husband. My husband is a domestic violence advocate. I'm also a survivor of domestic abuse. But I'm a former first lady. My first husband was a pastor. So it gives you, with me being a pastor's wife, I had I guess I want to say behind the curtain look at how a lot of Christian churches are run.
Mhm.
And when my husband and I met, I was Catholic. I converted to being a Baptist when I married him. So I found that I didn't realize how much um, I don't want to say control, but how much um, I guess that's the best word for it, control the church can have on a person's life. You know, I didn't realize it until I was actually on the other side of it, how you were concerned with what, the first lady wore or what the deacons thought about you and things like that. So that's one of the reasons why Miss Vanita asked me to come and co-host, because we've talked about this at length about spiritual abuse, because it wasn't until my husband started writing his book that I even found out that that was actually a term. It was actually a type of domestic violence where people basically used your religion against you and your spirituality and your connectedness to God to control you. So upon him writing that book, it made me start looking into it more, and I found out that it happens not just with the spouse, but it can happen with the pastors doing it, the congregations doing it to the pastor, and so forth. So, um, with that being said, um, what does and we can go around in a circle. I believe that we already set up the way we were going to answer this, but what does your church and how does your church preach about marriage? We can start with you, Evangelist Knight.
Basically, we preach marriage is between a man and a woman, as God has ordained. Marriage is
You muted yourself, Evangelist. You're muted.
You're muted.
basic.
Okay, we can hear you again.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm sorry. Basically, we teach that marriage is
you're muted again.
okay. Hopefully,
Okay,
this works.
we're
Okay.
gonna get it together. God's here. He's here.
Okay.
He's in the midst. Go on.
Basically, we teach marriage as the foundation of the family. Is sanctified and special in God's eyes. God has ordained marriage as the relationship between a man and a woman, and that's the only type of marriages that we recognize. We realize that society has changed, but we've not adopted that change. We don't condemn or judge people, but our whole basis on marriage is founded in the Word of God. Uh, as when he brought Adam and Eve together. Man shall leave his father and his mother and shall join unto his wife, and they two shall become one flesh. Now, that's what we believe, and that's what we teach. We do recognize that society has other ideas of what marriage is. Do we condemn people? No. Do we ordain it in our church? No. Will we allow those type of marriages to take place within our church? No. But we do say that a woman is to submit to her own husband, not unto man, but unto her own husband. But her husband is to love her as Christ loved the church. And if you love her as Christ loved the church, you know that you will do anything for her and to make her happy, that she won't have a problem being submissive. And submissive does not mean that I am your doormat. Submissive does not mean that you run over me. Submissive is that you treat me as an equal, but I do recognize you as the head of the household. And I have no problem with that. That is how my home operates. And we have no problem with that because I know who I am as a person. I know who I am in Christ, and my husband also knows who he is. And so we don't have an issue with one feeling the need to uh, run over or run down the other. So we don't have that. Not saying that things are perfect. We do have our disagreements, but we do know how to reason and work out our disagreements without becoming physical, without becoming abusive. And we recognize that if one does something that hurts or displeases the other, you have to make that known. You have to let that person know because I could continue doing something that's harmful to you because I don't know that it's harmful. So that's pretty much what we teach in our church and how I operate and my husband operates in our home.
Okay. All right. So, Reverend Lewis, I'm going to piggyback off of Evangelist Knight because she says that you're the son of her pastor. So, I'd like to get your thoughts.
Exactly what she said is exactly how I was taught my whole life, honestly.
Mm.
While my dad is her pastor, I'm actually a member of my home church back in Burbank, North Carolina, Union Chapel, Missionary Baptist Church. And my pastor has always taught, marriage is a sacred bond that God has ordained between a man and woman. Um, and you earlier you mentioned, sound like I've been married for 5 years. I've only been married for July, be 2 years that I've been married. And everybody like to say we still in that honeymoon phase, but that
You
honeymoon
are.
phase still has some dark days in it, still has some
Oh,
rough
yeah.
times in it.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the fact of how I was raised, understanding what marriage is, it wouldn't be here now. I understand that, communication is the key, that understanding that I'm a part of her, she's a part of me, but separately we're still our own identities. Yes, we share the same last name, but we can't run around and do stuff as if we're not a couple. And even when it comes to something simple as, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Let me check with my wife. She goes, let me check with my husband, because we are subjugate to each other. It's not more of, oh, she's going to ask me, I don't ask her. No, we communicate, we talk, and that's the way. A little the combination of what my dad taught and what my pastor taught of what marriage is how I live my life, and especially in my marriage. My beliefs on marriage is like I said, aligns with what Reverend Knight said. I do believe that it's between a man and a woman, but at the same time, I cannot condemn you for how you live your life. I don't have a heaven or a hell to put you in. Only thing I can do is love you as Christ loved everybody. Only thing I can do is talk to you, listen, and give you advice from my opinion, my point of view, and what the Bible says. So when it comes to marriage, it's a situation because I'm in the millennial generation where love is love and happiness is happiness. But at the same time, the word of God is the word of God.
So true.
Amen. Evangelist McCann.
Well, me being raised as a PK kid,
Oh, I have one of those.
I had my whole new different, idea of what our marriage was. When I first got married to my husband, ex-husband, I went into it thinking, I'm going to be the submissive wife, and I had this ideal that, he was gonna be the type of husband that my grandfather was to my grandmother, and my dad was to my mother. um,
Mhm.
I I found out quickly when they say unequally yoked, everybody don't have the same concept because to my ex-husband, submission meant control.
Right, right.
So definitely, you got to find out where people's mind frame is and what they believe, because everybody says that they're Christian and everybody says that they're saved, but then at the same time you got to make sure that they're living according to what God. Because me, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, submitting myself to Him, but He's supposed to submit Himself to God.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I had the fantasy that it was just gonna be, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. But I was quick to find out that everybody just doesn't have the same belief.
Yeah, everybody don't have the
Yeah.
same idea.
So true. So
So yeah,
Miss Benita.
communication is definitely important, and knowing that you guys are on the same page and equally yoked, definitely.
Amen. Miss Vanita, what you got for us?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna go a little. I'm gonna ask. In the faith-based community, what can you do? If you notice someone in the congregation is being abused, what do you do? Do we just pray for them, sweep it under the rug, give them a couple of scriptures, send them on their way? What do you do? Any of you can answer.
Well, I'll answer that. Me being in that situation where I was abused and I was very quiet about it. But sometimes God will put things on your heart and show you things about a person's situation. And, definitely I would have liked if someone would reach out to me. Um, Not one of those I told you so, but just as, I'm here for you, you need to talk, pray for them as well. But I would definitely reach out to someone, but I would just do it, pray about it, because everybody, when you in that situation, some people is going to be offensive in how you approach them. You know what I'm saying? So definitely pray on it. But I would definitely go to that person that God has showed me, or if I can see the signs of that person being in an abusive relationship.
I I agree with what
Reverend Lewis?
Uh-huh.
You said Reverend Lewis?
Mhm.
Go ahead,
Well,
Evangelist Knight.
take it
I'm
away.
sorry. It's like a lag.
No,
Go
it's
ahead, Evangelist Knight. You can finish.
but what I was saying was I agree with what Evangelist McCann was saying, that you have to reach you I would reach out, but you have to reach out carefully.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you
Mhm.
prior to reaching out in a situation, you have to reach out in friendship. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
where we in the churches are lagging behind. We don't try to
Mm-hmm.
establish relationships with one another within the church, so that
Right.
something happens that I feel comfortable in saying, if you need to talk to me, I'm available. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I know that everything isn't okay. I have to have a relationship with you, whereas I
Right.
can open that dialogue with you, because you're not going to just open up and share with anybody. I know I'm not. Um, I'm very particular about things that I discuss with people. And so we have to build relationships first. And
Right.
if we would do that, then that would make it so much easier to reach out to people when they are going through. And then you will know when they are going
Mhm.
through.
Right.
You'll be able to recognize.
I completely agree with Evangelist Knight and Evangelist McCain. Don't know
McCain.
if I'm saying. Don't beat me up. It's not right.
You got it
Because
right.
because when you see it, first you have to move by the Spirit. Because you
Mhm.
just can't dive in. Because number one, we know as church folk, when somebody approaches you and asks you a question, and if it offends you, why you in my business? Why you trying
Right.
to worry about what's going on in my house? Worry about your
Right.
house. So you
Mhm.
have to approach it with the mindset of letting them know, I'm not coming to you to be in your business, to be malicious. I'm coming to you with the love of Jesus in my heart. And I'm coming to
Right.
you because I see there's a need that you
Right.
need help in some way. So
Right.
I'm here if you want to talk. Don't force them to talk. You just gotta
Right.
ease them into it. I'm here if you want to talk.
Let's
If
open the
you want to
door.
Right.
go grab a cup of coffee, if
Right.
you want to text and watch TV together, watch something crazy on TV just to get your mind off what you're going through, I'm here, but I'm not going to force you to talk about something you're not ready to talk about yet, because that
Right.
leads
Exactly.
to the
Mhm.
shutdown of the person, and that
Right.
makes the
Right.
situation worse because the person is shut down
Exactly.
in public, and the abuser might
Mhm.
be in public with them, and it's why you
Right.
acting like that in public, and then a week go by, the abuser comes back, but the
Right.
abused does not. So we have to approach it gingerly and let them know that we're here when you're ready.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Now, here's my question. As a church, a
Mhm.
lot of churches are still living in the Old Testament. Jesus came, y'all. Jesus came.
Yeah. Oh
We in
yeah.
New Testament. So all that Old Testament thinking, I think Christians need to move away from. I think that's one of the
Mhm.
bigger problems. The other thing is, I feel that we as Christians need to stop treating church like it's high school, where everybody's
Mhm.
clicked up and, I'm on a choir or I'm a deaconess or that has to stop. For as far as domestic violence go, I've heard that the one point that all of you made was I have to have a relationship with that person to be able to feel like I can breach that subject. But as a church, shouldn't we already have that relationship with them? I should know whether Evangelist McKnight has children and grandchildren because we're in the church. I should know whether or not
Mhm.
Reverend Lewis got straight A's, in school. I should know whether, Evangelist McCann just got her driver's license. I should know it. We're supposed to
Right.
be an extended family. We're supposed to
Right.
be, a fellowship. So why am I sitting up here in church with my cute hat on? I got my crown on, my dress, legs crossed, gloves on, and I don't know who's sitting to my right. I
Right. You're
had
right.
a I had a minister
Mhm.
who I went to that church. I love that church. I actually got baptized again in my 30s at this church when I moved down. I'm in North Carolina. I'm here by way of Philadelphia. Before I moved to North Carolina, I was in South Carolina. But we were living in Myrtle Beach, and I was going to a church down there. It was a popular church, but it wasn't a big church. It was my size. I felt like it was big enough that we ought to know each other. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
Excellent preacher. God rest his soul. He just passed away. But it was an excellent preacher. But I had a problem with that
Mhm.
church. You know what that
Mm.
problem was? My father had passed away the year before. And every Sunday, I would greet the pastor and he'd go, "How's your dad doing?" My father, I literally was just off my father passing away. And every Sunday, I'd have to go, "My dad's no longer with us." And he'd go, "Well, who's that?" "That's my uncle." Because I went to church with my aunt and my uncle. They lived there before I did. So I look a lot like my aunt, so he assumed that was my mother and my father. First Sunday I can go with it. Second Sunday I can go with it. Third, but when I've been there for 3 years,
Right.
And you
Right.
still asking about my daddy? You
Right.
know,
Right.
we got to
Right.
do better. We
Yeah.
have to do better.
Ooh,
You know,
yeah.
and the other thing is, I married my second husband when I was down there, and I got pregnant. You can see I was pregnant. I went from this big to this big. Okay, and I would bring him to church, and every Sunday they go, "Oh, your grandson is so cute." Come on, people.
You stop
So
that.
you try to resurrect my father and give me a grandbaby. And at the time, my oldest was like 17 or 18 years old. So we wasn't trying to hear that grandbaby talk at all. It was like poo poo, poo poo, you know. And they knew my kids. They knew my kids. They knew my husband.
Right.
And they would ask me every Sunday, how's it? Oh, your grandson is so cute. He looks just like you. Does he look like my husband too? You know,
Right.
so I just think that we have to do better as Christians. I'm calling myself Christ-like by calling myself a Christian.
Right.
Would a better woman be able to walk in, or a better man be able to walk in his presence and he not know? Will he not feel that connection?
Right.
And if a better person can get by us in the church, we ain't doing
Right.
it right, y'all.
Right.
The
You're
Bible says
absolutely
that
right.
that husbands love your wives. Now they'll preach to you about
Mm-hmm.
staying with them, with the man that's
Right.
beating you to death.
Right.
But they won't tell the husbands, love your wives. I had to pull it up.
Mm-hmm.
Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them.
Right.
You know, so then I spoke my piece. I saw Reverend, I'm going to let Reverend Lewis go first, Evangelist McKnight, because he said he's going to sit in the corner, and I refuse to allow baby to sit in the corner tonight.
So you said, shouldn't we know? Should we
Not
Mm-hmm.
have that
shouldn't we,
relationship?
not shouldn't
Don't
we know whether they're being abused, but shouldn't
no,
we
no,
know
we
our
have their relationship,
congregation
right?
better? Right.
Okay,
Right.
so
Mm-hmm.
I want to premise this by saying I'm 33, but I grew up in an old school church.
Mm-hmm.
In the church I grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
my pastor could tell me what I wore last Sunday.
Exactly.
And it's not because it was a small church, but it's just because he had that relationship. I grew up
Mm-hmm.
in a
Right.
town that's no bigger than the hair on my head. And
Mm-hmm.
pastor would go from house to house every Sunday fellowship with the families.
Mm-hmm.
That is out of character in this day and age. This day and age, and this is my opinion, in my opinion, don't beat me
Well,
up.
that's what we're here for. We want to hear
A
your
lot of
opinion.
a lot of churches have the body mentality,
Has the
where
what? I'm sorry.
the body mentality, where the membership is the body and not
Mm-hmm.
people. They want to
Right.
make sure that they have the membership. They have the mega church mentality of, oh, my church has 12,000 people every Sunday,
Right.
but he can't even name Mother Lou Bella Jenkins, who died on the front row last Sunday. He just says the mother passed away last Sunday. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the issue that we face in this day and age, especially in the black church. We care more about the finances, the body of the church instead of the actual people of the church. And that's why we have a lot of churches struggling, because people want church to be so microwave. Oh, we gotta be in and out in under an hour. We can't be in
Mm-hmm.
there too long. Pastor Jim preach for 45 minutes. I need him to sit down to quiet on some 8 songs. We got to go, because
Mm-hmm.
people want to have that mentality, and that's a factor into it too. No, after church, people used to stand around talk. Well, how's Lou Bella doing? You know, I heard she had a hip replaced, but now it's not that. It's I got the game is on. You know, I'm trying to get the Buffalo Wild Wings or something for dinner at church. I ain't
Not
got time
Buffalo
to stand
Wild
around and
Wings.
talk to somebody.
Mm,
And
mm-mm-mm.
that's the mentality that not just the pastors have, but everybody in the church has. Church is more of
Right.
a routine than a piece of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And until we get back to the point of we actually go in with a servant mindset, to I'm here to serve God and to be a blessing to my neighbor, to my brother, to my sister, to the person around me. I'm here to tarry for them, pray for them, intercede for them. We won't have
Mm-hmm.
that connection with our, if the church membership is that many people, you're supposed to have a connection with everybody. So until we get back to the point where we really do care about one another, and this is outside the church walls now. This is until we get to the point where we care about one another, we'll never have those relationships again with people like we used to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna tell you something. The black church controlled everything in the hood. Y'all know the black churches control everything. Who we voted for, who needed help. If Sister Howard needed food in the house, we knew it. We took food over there and left it on her doorstep without having to knock on her door and embarrass her. We gotta do better. It's nobody else's responsibility but ours. And I hear you, Reverend Lewis, where you say that, I'm of that millennium. I'm a 70s baby. I went to church and hell was hot. Okay? Hell was hot and I did not want to go there.
Exactly.
You went to hell for everything. You talking in church, you're going to hell.
You chew gum in
You
church.
say thank you, you're going to hell.
You chew gum, you're going to hell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's talking about past talking?
Okay. I play for church.
Yes.
At one point in time, if I took it, I played for youth choirs, male choirs, mass choirs, and I understood that different choirs operate differently. If I wanted,
I bet you a couple Sundays you was going to hell too, weren't you? You over there giggling?
If I wanted them kids to actually sing and sing, I knew I had to mix up the music a little bit. Like He Reigns Forever. Yes, whenever we get to the breakdown of He Reigns, yes, I'm playing Beyonce Love on top because that engaged the kids and they sing.
All
But
right, no more time.
But if they're in their mind, they're thinking you're the one I want. Of course, they're gonna sing. And a lot of church folks get out of that thing. You gotta tell your.
See, and you know what the other thing is? Before I get to Evangelist Night, before I get to her, the other thing that really bothers me about our brethren right now is we are so quick to convict and to cancel the wrong stuff. You know what I mean? Your sin ain't no better than my sin. You know what I mean?
Right.
My gluttony or whatever is not better than you cheating on your wife. Sin is sin. We all get to hell the same way when that's sin. But to sit up here and convict somebody who lives a gay lifestyle, but not convict a batterer, that's backwards.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you never hear about that from the pulpit. Never. Tell me the last time you heard a pastor get up in that pulpit and talked about honoring his wife other than maybe Mother's Day. You're supposed to honor that person that you take that vow with.
Well,
my wife.
We hear that every Sunday. We hear that, and I'll give it to my pastor. He honors his wife. He does that. He totally respects his wife. And the one thing I really like about it is when he first came there, a lot of the members demanded that he respect his wife. That's what they wanted, to know that he respected her. So, but I think the thing that you deal with in some of these small churches, and y'all excuse me, is that
see now, Evangelist Night, I gotta send you to hell because your phone ringing in church.
I'm getting ready to
cell phones
but this is the thing, and Denise came after me, so I hope it was a little bit easier with her. But when you're in a small church and it's a family church, and one thing I found in North Carolina, I come to North Carolina by way of New York.
Oh, okay.
Every church is run by a particular family.
Yeah, well, I had that in Philadelphia too. I wanted to get to that next, but go ahead.
Well, see, the church I attended in New York was so large, I wouldn't even have a clue who that family was. Every church is run by a particular family. And if that family accepts you, then okay. And it takes a while to accept you. And they will, and you will feel that you're in, and then all of a sudden something will push you back out. And so, and then we also came from a church that had problems with women in ministry. I was the first woman to come out at Anderson, so it was a little challenging. We lost, at least I know 2 members behind that, but The point being that churches go through so many different things that they refuse to address. That instead of the problem being smoothed out, it just grows and it metastasizes until it just goes throughout the church, and then all of a sudden you find this group is for, this group is against, and you got a house divided. And we all know a house divided cannot stand. This was not the instance when Pastor Lewis came. I was interim pastor at the time, so he didn't have to deal with a woman coming out in the ministry, but our church as a whole had to. I to some degree, we've overcome it, but I still think there are some reservations from some people as to where they see women in the ministry and how they see that women should operate in the ministry. And I think a lot of times this leads to spiritual abuse because you make a person feel condemned in the call that God has on your life. And so it's tough when you feel like an outsider in your own house.
Right.
You know, and I've experienced that where I felt like the outsider, where I felt the divide. And as you asked earlier, could I encounter someone that I didn't know from the church that was going through? I have encountered people who I don't know, who I met for the first time sitting on a bench, and I could tell that they were going through. God dealt with me to speak to that person, because the one thing we have to realize, we cannot get ahead of God. We do a lot of things, but we have to do them within the will of God, because God may not mean for me to talk to that person. He may want someone else to speak to that person. So if God opens the door and gives me the opportunity, yes, I will do it without hesitation, because I'm obedient to the Father. Obedience, as we know, is better than sacrifice. So yes, in obedience. But sometimes we have to realize that our desire to do ministry is not as important as our will to listen and obey the Father. And so, sure, we want to talk to and we want to comfort everyone that's hurting. But if God has not put that in our path at that time, we have to wait on God. Because if we do it ahead of his time, we could make that situation far worse than what it is. Now, I heard you say that they talk about a gay person going to hell, but a batterer, they'll pat on the back all day long because, you know, and a batterer could be the deacon in the church. He could be the pastor of the church. I realized that. But now, one Father's Day, I had the opportunity to preach a sermon. And I told the fathers, what your daughter find in a husband is what you've taught them is acceptable. Have you taught your daughter that it's not acceptable for a man to beat on her? Have you taught your daughter that it's not acceptable for a man to mistreat her? My daughter was supposed to go to the prom with this guy. They were just going, all I told her was in high school, she had to go to the prom. She couldn't miss everything in high school. Well, the guy called her screaming and yelling at her. And she told him, well, we won't be going to the prom together because my daddy doesn't yell at me. So because her father didn't yell at her, she wouldn't accept a young man yelling at her. You want to treat me with respect because this is what my father taught me I deserve. So sometimes we have to look at, did the toxic situation develop in that relationship, or was it before that relationship? And were we not satisfied until that relationship was toxic? Because I have encountered some women who are satisfied with being an abusive situation.
Yeah, some people feel like they're not loved unless they're being beat
unless
on.
They're
right.
And see, you know, I've even
that was a brainwashing and
nobody could be he did, you know.
Listen. I don't want somebody to raise their hand and say hi to me, okay? You can say it
Hey.
with your mouth. You can say it with your mouth. But that's a conditioning and a gaslighting that is done by somebody previous. It may have been the last relationship. It may have been their daddy that did it or
That's what I'm
uncle.
saying.
But that conditioning was there. My point wasn't that
Um,
I just felt like I just feel like as a church, it's able to be hidden. Domestic violence is able to be hidden
it
because
is.
we don't talk about it. A light needs to be put on it. You know what I mean? It
Right.
doesn't.
right.
This is 2020. I'm
It,
sorry,
You know,
2021, and you have people that were locked in their houses during quarantine with their
right.
abusers.
yes. And I understand that, and I recognize that we've got to call it out. Now, one thing that we do as Christians, we don't have a problem with addressing that visible sin. That openly gay person, I don't have a problem dealing with that. But that liar, that person that causes confusion and disruption all the time, we tend to let them slide. We don't
Mhm.
deal with those sins that we don't consider open and vile. But it's, like you said earlier, sin is sin. I don't care
Right.
what
Mhm.
it is.
And I
And
don't care who you sleep with. Evangelist McCain, you trying to get in there. I see
Yeah,
you.
Evangelist
Okay,
Me and
McCain, I'm gonna
okay.
go to
Evangelist,
Reverend Lewis.
Evangelist Knight was going at it. I just, come on in. Come on in, sister. We see you.
Okay, so I wanted to address, something that you had said earlier
Mm,
about you feeling that, the church should recognize signs, and they should. But I think often people come to church, they have these emotional walls up. A lot of times
mhm.
people, they don't get that healing. A lot of people, they going through the abuse. Some of them been molested as children,
Right.
and in Black families, I know
We
growing
told to
up,
keep
they say
mind our
what
business.
happens in your house stays in your
Stay in
house.
Stays in
your
your
house.
So they
house.
have
But
all these
but
emotional
but
walls,
Evangelist
and it's
Kane,
so,
that's what I'm saying.
mhm,
That is a
yeah,
generational curse we need to
right,
stop.
and it's
Stop.
right, and it's so
We gotta
hard to
stop it.
connect with people. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember, of course, me going through abusive relationship. I communicate through plays, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
the first time I wrote a play, and it was about my abusive relationship. And there was
Mm-hmm.
a couple women in the church that
Mm-hmm.
came up to me and said, "Wow, that's me." You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
this is
Mhm.
somebody that I would never even think that I would connect to, because she would never talk to me. But she
Right.
didn't realize while I was sitting beside her, I was going through the
Y'all
same
was
thing that she
struggling the
was going
same
through.
way. Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
I mean, so we have to find a way to knock down these emotional walls. And that's why I
Right.
love drama, because a lot of times people won't say it, but
Mm-hmm.
just seeing it in front of them, then like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
now I realize. Because when I'm be honest, when I was in my relationship, I didn't realize that it was abusive, because it
Mm-hmm.
became normal
Mhm.
to me after a while, if it makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
once I was able to step out of the relationship and I could reflect back on all the things I
Mm-hmm.
went through, I was, oh my God, I was abused. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people don't realize, because that spouse is controlling them. That is normal for them. But somebody else be like, why is that man controlling her? She can't go to the
Right.
bathroom unless
Someone
somebody
on
else
the
can go to
outside
the
is like,
bathroom.
girl, you
You know what
crazy
I'm
going
saying?
through all that.
Right. Somebody on the outside could see it, but once they was dealing with, they see somebody else going through, be like, wait a minute, that is abuse. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
we just
Right.
have to bring awareness and start healing
Right.
emotionally in the church. And I believe once we knock those walls down, people can connect to us. People will
Right.
feel more comfortable coming to us, because now that I have told my testimony, so many
Mm-hmm.
people that have never talked to me or come up to me and
Mm-hmm.
be like, hey, because now they feel like they can relate to me now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I
And
have
I'm
to
going
say.
to tell you something. I remember when I met Miss Renita, right? Sorry,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Evangelist. When I first met her, I didn't know who she
mm-hmm.
was. We
Right,
were at her gala. I didn't know who she was or whatever. This was my first time meeting her. I told that woman all my business on meeting her.
right,
I don't have no shame, y'all. In case y'all haven't figured it out, I ain't got no shame. You know what I mean?
right.
So
I feel you on
I had told
that.
I just I just connected with her because she has that energy, she has that light. Talk to me, tell me everything. She needs to be a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, not she needs to put down the podcast and the advocacy. Go be a therapist and fix us. Fixes, because she just has that about her spirit. You just want to walk up and tell her anything. And what I'm
Right.
saying, when I said
Mhm.
recognize the signs, I meant in a way of the Bible says, "Let your light shine so that men might see your good works." Evangelist,
Right.
reverend,
Right.
evangelist, y'all should see me in the street and say, I can talk to her. The same way I felt about Miss Renita,
Right.
I should,
Right.
we as Christians should be
Mhm.
emanating that I am someone safe.
Right.
I am someone you can talk to. I am someone you can, if I can't help you, I'm going to call somebody who can. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? As
Right.
Christians, that is our
Exactly.
responsibility. So many people are turning away from Christ because of our attitude.
Yeah, and
Because
you
of
gotta be approachable.
mm,
Now,
The Bible speaks of that being, being approachable. Not that I know, like when I was going through my situations, I've been through several situations. Um, I would go to church, but
Mhm.
everybody that there's the saying, everybody that goes to church is not saved. Everybody that goes to jail is not a criminal.
right.
And y'all know I believe in keeping it
That's
100.
that right. I know
Um,
that's right.
I was able to go, throw on some makeup, go to church. I was the last one to come in, the first one to walk out because I didn't want anybody to really see, or have time to actually connect with me to possibly know what I was going through. So for
Mhm.
me, I couldn't just blame it, strictly on the church. But then
Right.
there was a time that when I was going through and I was a member of a church and
Mhm.
I went to the pastor, I had just got tired. And I went to the pastor and I began to tell him everything, that I was going through because I was at wit's end. It was like I was at a point where um I was praying to God to just take me. Like I was tired. I was tired of going through it. And you know, I didn't understand what I was going through was abuse. I never seen it in my home. My dad loved my mom up until the day I called her home. My dad
Mm-hmm.
was an excellent father. Still is an excellent father. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he showed us, what it is to love a woman. And my mama could have been. My mama was mean. you know, she was mean. She was full, and keep it 100. But no matter my parents had respect for each other. And my dad will love her. Sometimes I'm like, man, just go, you know,
Run.
and because God was really in the midst. I mean, and y'all know I'm keeping it real. If y'all knew who my mom, evangelist might know, you know,
I,
my sister would probably say something to me after this podcast. But um, but the truth is the truth. But to see him love her, and when I got married the first time, I just wanted so my husband always tell me to say, and Kay, you know this, your first husband, because I don't want nobody to think that it's me.
Right.
uh,
Right.
Yeah, because when my husband gets out here, y'all, and he starts talking about his book, he'll go, I'm a survivor of abuse. And I'm like, would you please tell him it's not me? Please. We're at the point where I want to jump up behind him and be like,
so, but
so,
my first husband, he was abusive. He was a manipulator. But I was so set on giving my daughters what I had growing up. I wanted to be in a two-parent home. I wanted all of this, but he wasn't raised the same. I think Evangelist Tasha said, in our homes we're taught what goes on in our household
now
stays in our
stays at
household.
our house. Right.
Anybody watching this, throw that out the door.
Yes, kill that curse. Kill it right here, right now. I convict you
We need
all to throw
to
that away.
we need
Tell.
to spread awareness. We need to not just talk about it on the podcast, not just talk about it, but even in the churches. One of the things,
Mm-hmm.
we'll address it a little bit if we see it. But one of the things for me is like teaching people now what a healthy relationship is. Because if we don't teach our children now what a healthy relationship is, some of them might just take whatever that's going.
Right.
We got an echo. That's why everybody kind of.
Yeah,
Everybody's like, okay, what happened here?
You know, I think if we recognize right now, I think we're all saying great things and things that matter. But I think if we commit to opening ourselves up to helping one another and being a help to others, because that's what the church is to be, a help to others. If we say we're Christ-like, that's what Christ did. He helped in any situation. He recognized every situation, what the problem was. I have friends who come to me with, things, and I'm blessed that I've not been in a relationship like that. I've not been in one. I saw my parents have conflict coming up, but my mama was a strong woman who stood up for herself. She never just took anything. And so I realized that she didn't intend for us to just take anything. My mom stood up for herself. She was a strong woman. My sister was a strong woman, but sometimes they would get the best of her. But it won't, because she didn't give them her best. But we just got to get out and put aside some of the mess, some of the garbage that's in the church. This is a lot of garbage in the church. And my father in the ministry always told me, take in that which is good and throw out that which is bad. But a lot of times, a lot of that stuff which is bad, it gets left. It gets left, and it's there, and it's in the midst, and it's stinking up the place, and we don't want to deal with it. We got to get rid of some of this garbage that's in the church, and we got to recognize what the church is there for. It's nice to have a beautiful building. It's nice to have money in the bank. But our sole purpose, our main purpose, is to worship Christ and to serve his people. And when we get that first and foremost in our minds, a lot of this stuff we can let go of, because there's so much negative energy in the church that it weighs you down. And and I'm not going to pretend that, we have a beautiful church family. I love it. I do. But we got stuff that we need to clean up. And it's time to start being real. We got some stuff that needs to be cleaned up so that we can start doing the things that God has called us to do. Because a lot of the times we're dealing with the trash and we're not dealing with the work that God has called us to do, because we've allowed the trash to pile so high. And we're tripping over that trash, so we have to address it. And the other things are getting pushed on the back burner. And I think we as church men and women have to recognize that is not what our purpose is in Christ. That is not our purpose in Christ, to keep dealing with trash. Our purpose is to deal with people, to help people, to love people. People are who Christ came to serve and to help. Christ died that we all would have a right to everlasting life. And so if we stop looking and judging people for what little things we see, and I recognize the Bible is the Bible, and the Bible is true, and I'm always stand on truth. I'm going to always stand on truth. But I can look beyond your fault as Christ looked beyond my fault and see your need. I don't need to focus on your faults if I can't meet your need. If all I can see about you is that you're gay, or that you are a whoremonger, as they used to say, if that's all I can see, and I can't see that you're a person that needs love, that you're a person that needs encouragement, that you're a person that needs somebody to say a kind word, then I got the problem, not you. And it's because we focus on things so much that don't matter. They just don't matter. And if we deal with the things that matter, those other things Christ will take care of. What is the saying? You catch them, I'll clean them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't clean them up. I can lead them to Christ, but Christ does the work. Christ does the work. But if I can meet that need, if I can look beyond their fault and see that need, as Christ looked beyond my fault and saw my need, if I could stop judging people, and we all just stop judging people and stop looking and seeing their faults before we see their need, that's where we need to go. To beyond their fault and to their need. When I first met Vanita, ain't nowhere in the world you would have told me she was a survivor of domestic abuse, because she didn't look like she took it. She did not look like me, the type of woman. I would have never thought, until I heard her story. I did not know, because she looked like me. If you mess with her, she would put something on me. And that's how I saw her. I saw her as an aggressive woman who didn't take stuff from nobody. But see, there again, she put on that facade so that I couldn't see. She didn't want me to see. She didn't want me to know. And so many other people are doing the same thing. You got on this facade so that people don't know what your needs are. As Evangelist McCann said, tear down the emotional walls. But I can't tear down the emotional walls until you are willing to look beyond my faults and see my need.
Right. But Evangelist Knight,
then you're going to jump on me.
But Evangelist Knight, that's the part that I'm talking about. I don't need to see your need if I'm open. You know what I mean? If I'm open as the receiver, if you see me and you know that I'm a person that can help you, that you're not worried about me running all through the church telling your business, that you're not worried about, that's the part I'm talking about. The only way we can fix the church is to fix ourselves. It has to start with me.
Right. It has to start
with me. So I ain't got to tear your wall down if mine is down. If mine is down, you're going to come to me anyway.
Yes, yes. But there are so many people that are not coming. That are not.
When was the last time that you just hugged somebody just for no reason? Well, pre-pandemic. We COVID free over here.
I didn't have the privilege to hug them, but I did have the privilege to talk with them.
Mm-hmm.
I did have the privilege to talk with them. And I was glad to do it. It made me feel good about me that I was able to just talk with them.
Do you know why I asked about the hug thing? Coming up, I'm from Philadelphia, as I said earlier. Mm-hmm. And that was how we left church on Sunday, hugging people out the door. I was diagnosed with clinical depression a few years back. When I was younger, they thought it was just seasonal affective disorder. Basically, that when it's a cloudy day, my mood changes, And later on, they found out that it was seasonal. It wasn't sad. It was actually clinical depression. One of the things that will bring me out of one of those episodes is just a hug. A hug actually lowers your stress levels. It brings up your serotonin to make you feel better, and it just gets you in a better frame of mind. Even when you don't know what to say, that hug can mean everything to some person.
It can mean the world.
Reverend Lewis, come on. You was trying. I saw you over there. You were about to burst at one point. Come on, Reverend Lewis.
So I want to take it back off of two things Evangelist Knight said. But I premised it was this. First, Evangelist Knight, whenever I first met her, I was like, she's my favorite. She's one of my favorites. Because she said a lot of things that struck up something in my head. And then the first thing I want to pick it back off is exactly.
There she is. Welcome back.
When I first met Vernita, when I first met Vernita, I thought she was the sweetest person in the world, but I knew she carried a blade. I knew she wasn't.
I was going to say, I think that's a content to say she's sweet. I think of a lot of adjectives with Vernita. Sweet ain't one of them.
She is not.
But you knew she had a straight razor in there somewhere, right?
But the main thing I want to piggyback off of is we're talking about the church and making sure people are aware you can come to the church. I feel like part of the main reason, especially young ladies, feel like they can't come to the church is because they saw this one thing growing up that the church used to do. And it was called sat down. So
it was what?
It was called getting sat down.
I gotta tell you, wait, man. I missed that one.
So,
I'm not from here, so you're going to have to say it to me again slower.
I'm saying it with the country twang because that's how I heard it. Sat down.
Sat down.
Sat.
Okay, all right.
So what happens is the young lady comes to church and she just happens to be pregnant out of wedlock. She can sing in the choir, she usher or whatever, but once she gets pregnant out of wedlock, oh no, this can't represent this church. We got to sit you down. Now,
I got you. I got you now. I know what it is. Thank you.
Her baby daddy could be the drummer, the choir director, the deacon,
right.
And he's still up working.
Right.
Now, my question, and this was always my thing, how are you going to condemn the lady who's doing God's work, bringing life into this world? Yes, they're not married. Yes, that was sin. But at the end of the day, it takes two to do that. I only know of one baby that was immaculately conceived, and his name was Jesus. And Lord didn't sit Mary down. He didn't say, Mary, now I done got you pregnant, so I got to sit you down. You can't keep working now, Mary. You can't see Joseph. No, he didn't do that. Right. So the church started the council culture when a woman came in pregnant. Now, a man could come in, he could be divorced 18 million times. He could have robbed 6 people, went to jail for 30 years, and still come back and still be Deacon Thompson on the deacon board. But and that's why a lot of females have an issue with coming to the church. Because and the other part of that cancel culture is before they sit you down, you know what they're going to do? They're going to parade you in front of the church and make you apologize to the church. Like,
and that's abuse.
That is exactly spiritual abuse, and that's why it's so hard, not just for ladies, but for anybody to come to. Because we saw this growing up. We saw this happening to our family, to our friends, to our sisters, to our mamas, because you got pregnant out of wedlock, you got to apologize to the church. I'm sorry, did she sleep with everybody in the church to make this baby? Why she apologize to the church?
Right. You want to make everybody in the church take care of that baby?
That's the main issue with that everybody has come to the church for help. That's why a lot of abuse victims don't come in, because they feel like somebody said something about the church telling their business. That is the church telling their business. They want to stand up there with sister Sokashana wants to come up and apologize to the church for having the drummer Tiberius's baby, but she's going to tell everybody what happened and she's going to apologize. Why is that? Why does that need to be on blast?
Exactly.
Why do you need to shame someone for bringing a life into this world? Why do you need to? And why are you praising the drum? Oh, that's another notch in his belt. No.
And how hypocritical is that? How hypocritical is that, Reverend Lewis?
Very hypocritical.
Kirk Franklin, I don't care if he played the drums for Jesus himself at the foot of the cross. He needs to be sat down too if we're sitting people down. Or if not, let them live their life. Let them live their life. People make mistakes.
But Reverend Lewis, think about how hypocritical that is, what you just said. Where if a woman's pregnant out of wedlock, she had to, stand up and apologize to the church. However, we were just talking about the subservience that women aren't supposed to do to men. So if we're going to talk about it, I'm following his lead. If anybody should be apologizing, anybody should be apologizing, it should be him.
Why is he still the head of the deacon board?
So I'm glad. I'm glad you brought that up. Go ahead, Evangelist, because I have I have some questions.
My mom always said that, and this is she said what they grew up and they didn't understand it either. A woman can go out and hang out all night and they call us slut. A man can get out around in the mud
and he still be Reverend Johnson
in the morning.
Not you, Reverend.
And they call him deacon. But this is a patriarchal society. This is a male-oriented society. And we have to realize that the Bible is male-oriented. But as you said, Sister Hannah, we are now from the Old Testament to the New Testament.
That's right. You ain't stoning nobody no more.
We are all saved by grace. Now, you're right. We had somebody at our church do that. And the late Mother Lucy Pender asked me, would you do it? I told her, no, ma'am. because the church don't have a heaven or a hell to put me in. I'm not humiliating myself because it's humility. You're right. It is spiritual abuse because first of all, you make me feel like I did something really bad. I got to stand up in front of the entire church and apologize. But he going to sit back there and going to stand on the door and usher, going to get up to play the drums, as you said. You don't hold the men accountable like you do the women.
Yeah.
And that's because of society. That's because of society.
Evangelist, I'm sorry to cut you off, but something you said that just it hit my spirit. I'm gonna tell y'all something, and I know my husband is watching. Hey, boo, I know he watching. Okay, so man, he'll. I'm gonna tell a secret. Reverend Lewis, this is just for you, okay? Because you only been married 2 years, okay? This is just for you. The man is always the head of the household, but guess what? The woman is the neck. She gonna turn that head whichever way she needed to go. Mm-hmm. The stuff that goes on in the church or that is allowed, allow me to tell you it's our fault. Yes. It is our fault as women.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We run that church. We run that church just like we run our household. Your job, Reverend Lewis, as the husband, is to be a provider and a source of security for your wife. Her job is to make sure any children that you have are okay and that your house is right. And I'm not talking about cooking and cleaning. So anybody that's about to get in my comments about cleaning, get out right now. But your house, she makes sure your house is right, as in who comes in and out, what spirit comes in and out that house. Mm-hmm. You have been around people that their spirit just, got you itching or humming, and you're like, no, can't do that. But over the years, I think that the reason that women has lost their power or is losing their power is that we are being too polite. You get on the elevator with somebody, they feel a little sketchy. You won't get off the elevator because you don't want to be rude to him or make him believe that he's making you uncomfortable. You're walking down the street and somebody comes up on you. You don't want to cross the street because you don't want to make him believe that you're, that you think he's about to do something to you. We're too polite. And because we are too polite, because we're worried about Reverend Lewis going to jail because he hit me, or Reverend Lewis going to jail because he came to my rescue, we don't talk. We don't speak. And women have started to become so vicious where we would rather tear each other down than to build each other up.
All right.
And because of that, our children have fallen by the wayside. Yeah. Domestic abuse is at an all-time high. And these men are out here acting like they ain't got no sense.
Not just women, Black people in general.
Well, I'm speaking from my purview, okay?
Oh, okay.
I am a woman first, I'm Black next, okay? Because as a woman, I see where we are falling short. And because we're falling short, and we're not holding y'all accountable anymore either.
There's
a show on the air called Paternity Court, y'all. Paternity Court, with these women, I think
with Judge
the only man I was with. I think so. Might be 5 or 6 more. I don't know. And then when they get the results, she'll say, I'm 100% sure that he's the only person I've ever been with. When the results come in, you see her say, thank you, Jesus. Girl. And I don't want to hear that it's because of teen moms. My grandmother was 14 when she had my auntie. I don't want to hear it's because we're out here working. My mother worked. I worked raising my daughters. Other women worked and took care of people and made sure that we got our first Black president. His mama worked. So it's not on that. We are becoming very lax in not just our womanhood, but in our spirituality. Mm-hmm. We are becoming too lax.
I agree.
To say that I went to a church that didn't accept women preachers, I wouldn't be there no more. What if God spoke to me and told me that it is my calling to preach, and I'm in a church that's telling me that I shouldn't be? Mary Magdalene was the first person that Christ went to and told her to spread the gospel. that he has risen. That was the first preacher. So how is it women aren't supposed to be preachers?
You know, I've never
New
heard
Testament.
that adjective. That
What, about Mary
shouldn't be
Magdalene?
No. That women shouldn't be preachers
Ooh, honey.
You
Until
never
Lord.
heard that.
Hold on. Because here we go. I grew up in a church back home. My aunt was a woman preacher. My cousin was a woman preacher. There was another woman preacher. All my life, I've seen women preachers in the pulpit preaching. My godmother pastored the AME church for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so hearing people, I don't believe in women preaching, and especially other preachers, especially other male preachers. And I'm like, so I always ask them, was you there when God called them? Because I know I wasn't.
AME is common for women to preach, but Baptist, missionary,
Baptists don't play that.
Missionary Baptists, no. And primitive
It's not
Baptist,
just missionary Baptists.
primitive Baptists, never. You hear me? Never.
And you know,
But
my grandmother. My grandmother was a pastor, so I grew up under women pastors. I have never, when I met my ex-husband, he came from missionary Baptist church, and he didn't believe in women pastors. So I was thinking in my word, like, why are you with me? You know what I'm saying? You already know I'm a preacher. Once he married me, he was like, now you can't preach no more. I said, oh no, my commitment to God first. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But, so being a woman pastor a preacher has never been because it was easy for me because that's all I knew. But I know in some churches they do not believe.
They don't.
And my grandmother went through a lot. She went through a lot being a female pastor.
My
mother-in-law
mother-in-law was one.
Let me piggyback on this, and Evangelist Night, I never said this to you, but I'm glad you went through it. I thank you. I thank you.
Well, I'm glad that I went through that it would be easier for you. So
well, I can tell
thank
you this
for
much.
that. And I thank you for the women that went before me, because even my pastor's heart was softened because God told him that I was called. But I didn't think he would tell him because Missionary Baptist Church, this church, we had that woman that came there that time that said the Lord told her to preach. Next thing I knew, the woman would go.
Oh Lord! They go, well, you gonna preach, but you ain't gonna do it here.
But she was gone.
My bad.
But I struggled with it for a year. It was a year before I actually came out. I struggled with it for a year, whether to tell or whether to move my membership. I did go through a lot with that, but God never said go. So this was him opening the door, and this is life. Somebody has to be the first, and somebody has to take those bumps and bruises. And it's a lot of folk that took bumps and bruises for me. So I'm glad I was able to do it for you. And not only that, is I was a fairly, not a newcomer, but somebody new to the church, and that's the thing too. I was new to the church. And so I guess that was also played a part. But I agree with you that we have allowed ourselves to become too complacent with the way things are. The church in the beginning stirred up stuff.
We were part of the community.
Judaism was all they knew. And when Christ came, it stirred up things. And when he died and he went back to heaven, he told them the world would hate them because it hated him. So that's something we ought to be prepared for. That shouldn't catch us off guard. But what we have to realize is we are to stir up some things. We are to change some things. We are to affect change. And I say this all the time. We're not to be changed, but we're to effect change. We have got to start standing up We've got to start speaking boldly, and
Mhm.
we've got to hold the men accountable. And this is one thing I've learned is that we're not subservient to men. We're to be submissive to our own husbands. The rest of the men in the church have no
Right.
say,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
no say so over me.
Exactly.
I am to be submissive to my own husband. I respect the pastor. I respect the other men in the church, but I am not to be submissive to you.
Mm-hmm.
I am to
Mhm.
be submissive to my own husband. You do not, it's not that way. I have one husband and one man that I am submissive to, and that's it. The rest of it, that's where we were taught wrong and we accepted it. But in the last 2 months, I've been teaching from the book of Thessalonians, and that is
Mm-hmm.
not what God intended.
Mm-hmm.
You're to be submissive to your own husband. The other
Mm-hmm.
men, no, no, no. So
So
don't
let me ask
don't
everybody this as we begin to wrap tonight up. Um, and I want you to think about this. And we'll just go in a circle, everybody answering. We see violence. It's not just outside of the church. We know it's in the church as well. And I'm glad that everybody has came on tonight to bring out some very good points. But what do we do from here on out to make sure that the love that Jesus portrayed, we are doing it, portraying it with our sisters and our brothers? As my Reverend Lewis said, guys, I'm kind of like on a sister brother level with him. So I was about to say his name, but as Reverend Lewis said, men are abused as well. Um, what are we going to do in the church? One, to bring awareness to domestic violence. And then two, what would Jesus do about violence against a man or a woman? So we're going to start with Reverend Lewis, go to Evangelist Knight, then Evangelist Tasha McCann.
Anita. You could have called me Marquez. That's my name. Reverend's my title. The thing we can do to actually strike up awareness is making sure we don't treat things as if they're taboo in the church. We have to have these open conversations, and it doesn't start when we're in relationships. It needs to start with these teenagers so they'll understand healthy relationships. Because teenagers can be abused in relationships as well. So
Exactly.
it needs to start there so they'll understand what a healthy relationship is. Because honestly, some teenagers don't come from a two-parent home. Some teenagers come from foster homes to the church, and they don't see what love is, what real love. Not just saying, "Oh, I love you." No, real love, that
Mm-hmm.
agape love, that the
Mm-hmm.
Christ-like love. That no matter what happens, I'm here for you. No matter what happens, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to love you anyway. And that needs to be the culture shock to the church. We need to go back to loving everybody in the church with the love of Jesus. We can't keep judging people because of their circumstances. We can't keep judging them because of what happened. We can't keep judging them because of what they did. We have to understand that if Christ so loved the world that he laid down his life for us, we have to so love our neighbor that we're willing to be there with them and stand in the fire with them and be right there with them no matter what. Don't shun them because they got arrested. We got to turn our backs. So no, let them know you fell down, you messed up. You can get back up through the help of Christ, and we support you. We have to change the culture to let people know no matter what's happened to you, what you've been through, the hell and high water you've been through in life, we are here. The church isn't the building. The church is me. The church is me. I'm here. I'm right here. My
Right.
heart is pure. My mind is made up that no matter what, I'm going to love you. Even with the person that call themselves your enemy, because you got to love them anyway. My granddaddy said you got to love the hell out of them. You have to love people no matter what. And when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, whenever that last trumpet sound, and you want to make sure you get in, the only thing that's going to get you in is what? Love. It's the love of Jesus. That's a big key part of salvation. Understanding that you have to love everybody. You have to love Jesus. And that starts with loving yourself. You don't love yourself, you can't love nobody. If you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor. If you don't love yourself, what are you doing in life? Yeah, you've been through things. Yeah, somebody might have knocked you upside the head. Yeah, people might have been trying to tear you away from your family, saying your family don't love you. But if your love is rooted in yourself and in Christ, you're going to be okay. That's what we got to do. We got to put love back at the front of the church. Not this love that's the word, oh, I love you. You can call me anytime, day and night. I don't tell people they can call me anytime, day and night because I know I'm past my bedtime now. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So you got to love, you let them know that you love them unconditional. And if you honestly show them the love that you have in your heart, and if they have access to see healthy relationships, because the first healthiest relationship they need to see is your relationship with Christ. Because just like your relationship with your spouse has to be consistent, your relationship with Christ has to be very consistent. You have to love him. You have to communicate with him. That's the best way to teach it. Teaching them how to communicate with Christ teaches them how to communicate with their spouse. Because if you don't talk to Christ every day, if you don't go down on your knees and pray every day, if you don't take him with you everywhere you go, if you don't remind people that, hey, I'm Christ, I belong to him. If you're not letting your light shine, if you're not being the salt of the earth, you're not loving.
Evangelist Knight.
I concur with a lot that Reverend Lewis has said, in that the culture has to be changed. It's not a taboo conversation. If there's anything that's causing pain or hurting, we need to address it in the church. We need to teach people how to love one another, how to treat one another. And we need to deal with it daily from youth on up. And we also need to teach people that, yeah, you got to love yourself, because Christ brings a man and a woman together, a one whole with another whole. If you're not whole, you can't be a part of that relationship, because there's going to always be something that's dragging it down or dragging you down. A relationship consists of two whole people, not two partial people. And so you have to be whole. And the only way to be whole is to deal with whatever that issue is, whatever that concern is. And don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed, because what you're going through, somebody else has gone through. I may not have gone through exactly what you've gone through, but I've gone through something. There's something in my life that's not perfect. So don't be ashamed. Talk about it. Whatever you have to do to be healed, do it. Do it. Because that's the only way you can fulfill your purpose, is that you have to be whole and you have to be healed. And I can't be healed if I'm ashamed. If I was ashamed to go to the doctor and tell him that I had cancer, I'd still be battling with cancer. So I got to go to the doctor and tell them I'm battling abuse or mental health or whatever. I'm going to do what I need to do to heal. And that's what Christ did. Christ addressed the situation head on. He didn't color it. He didn't try to fix it up. He didn't try to dress it up. He addressed it head on. And that's how we have to do in the church. Stop trying to make things look nice and pretty and put them in this little box or that little box. Deal with it. Just deal with it as it is. And don't make people feel less than, because we're all somebody in God's eyes. Christ died for us all. He didn't choose this one or that one, but he died for us all. And that's where we have to be, to the point that it doesn't matter who it is or what the situation. I'm willing to help. I'm willing to open myself up to you, and I want you to open yourself up to me.
And right before we get to Evangelist McCann, something that Reverend Lewis said, to start with our youth. and it's important. I don't know if everybody know, but February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So in order for there to be an awareness month, there has to be a lot of abuse in our youth. And so I do agree with you. We need to start young, teaching them what a healthy relationship is. Because if statistics um, has it, you know, people are being assaulted and date raped at a young age. And so it is important that we start young, we educate them on what a healthy relationship is. So if that person shows signs of abuse, they wouldn't just shut down. They'll know something's not right. Also, as parents and as leaders, we have a responsibility as well. Um, and the reason I say that is a lot of times, growing up, sometimes people don't feel comfortable going to their parents. They may come to their leader because they have built that trust, or you have built that trust with them. And if they come to you and begin to talk to you, you need to be able to say, okay, let me get you some help. And I do understand that um, every minister is not equipped to handle a domestic violence situation. So we don't need to sugarcoat it and say, oh, because you stand in the pulpit, you're able to handle that. No, it's okay to say, look, I don't know. Let me get you some help. If we're able to be real with them, we build a better relationship with them than to say, well, let me give you this answer. And they walk outside that office and we turn on the news and that person has gotten killed.
Mm-hmm.
Because that blood is going to be on our hands. So not only that, as leaders, we have our responsibility is deep. So we have to make sure, what information we're giving out is really beneficial for that person. And it's okay. I know even with me, I know Evangelist Night, Kay, you guys know I'll call quick. I don't have an issue. I don't know, let me call. And I tell Kay all the time, I'm glad you're not so jealous, because my husband and I talk all the time. So when Wallace come in, he goes, you must be talking to Hennett. They know what we do as advocates, and we're not going to do anything to, bring disrespect into our relationships. That's very clear. But they know what we do, and when we're talking, we're advocating. So, there's times that she'll walk in and say, hey, tell Vernita hi. I would go walk in and say, hey, tell Dwayne hi.
Yeah, he's on the phone more than 5 minutes. It's like, tell Vernita I say hi. Otherwise, it's like, normally he's like, yeah, okay, all right, whatever. And he hangs up the phone. But if he's on there for more than 5 minutes, tell Vernita I say hi.
Can I interject one thing?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't share that my husband is the retired sheriff of Edgecombe County. So
Yes.
I have an asset within my home, one who has dealt with domestic violence situations on all scales. So on all types of violence. He's dealt with it. He knows how to talk people down. There's some instances where you're not going to be able to talk people down. There's some instances where you're going to either the person's going to have to be willing to move on, and even then you got to worry about them because you don't know if this person is willing to let them go. So, but I do have an asset in my home, in that my husband has dealt with this in his 30-some year career as a deputy, as a sheriff of Edgecombe County. He's dealt with it on all levels, youth as well.
Mm-hmm. Evangelist Night, right before we get to Evangelist McCain, and I know, guys, we're running really short on time, but I do have one question for you. Since you brought it up, I didn't want to say, well, hey, during the time that he was serving as sheriff, and I know as being an advocate, the calls that we get at times can be extremely stressful. When it's time to advocate, and when you're talking to talking to the women or talking to the men, letting them know they're not alone. Um, but I just want, from a wife aspect, how did you deal with seeing the stressful situation within him and keeping yourself spiritually bound?
What I did was I didn't allow myself to become overwhelmed. I always understood that this was what he had to do, and then this was his calling in life, and I accepted that. And if I wouldn't interfere with his calling as a minister, I wouldn't interfere with his calling in that area. So while he did what he had to do, I was constantly in prayer, constantly in study. I was taking care of the children. I was doing what I needed to do to make home life easier so that he could deal with that situation. And then when he got home, if there was a time that he shared or what have you, I would always encourage him and let him know, you did what you could do. Now it's up to them to follow what you've suggested, because you can't always make people do what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that as a law enforcement officer, a domestic violence situation is one of the most dangerous you can enter, because you could be trying to help that spouse, but that spouse may turn on you at any moment. So that's one of the most dangerous situations that you could be in. So I've always prayed. I've always had a close walk with the Lord, and I've always loved to study, even when I didn't understand. I love to study. So that's what helped me. And knowing that if I kept the home front okay, as Sister Hannah said, you're supposed to keep the house right, keep everything right at the home. I knew that he could do his job out there without a whole lot of stuff pulling him down.
Right.
And that's how we dealt with it.
Thank you. Evangelist McCain. McCann. I'm sorry.
Well, I would say the best advice was, one, always know that you're not a victim. You are a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Never forget where God brought you from. I think often in church, people pretend, or they act like they never been through nothing. They, they keep that testimony to themselves, and they wonder why people are not connecting with them. So I learned that in ministry, that to become open, and to not carry emotional baggage on me, because if you don't, people see that baggage, but they don't see you. And God brought you through something, and so you have to be willing and to be relatable to people and tell your testimony. It's like she said, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There are so many people that have been through your situation that did not survive. There are so many people that have been, they're in the grave, or they in a mental institution, or they in jail right now, so they can't tell their testimony. But you can tell people, say, hey, I lived through this. And the first time when I told my testimony, you wouldn't believe how many people connected to me. Like, while I was walking around holding stuff in, thinking I was the only person in the world that was going through this, and not knowing that I was going to be a testimony, not only a testimony, but a way to help other people. I didn't even know that I was going to be in ministry. I had no idea. My grandmother was a pastor. I said I would never preach. I didn't want that responsibility, but I didn't know that God was preparing me. Everything I was going through, he was preparing me for this very moment. So when you don't tell people your story, that makes people not connect to you. Your story is a part of your ministry. So if you can't tell your story, then you're hindering your ministry. So I think that's the best advice to people, and that would open up the doors. That will make people come out and talk to you, feel connected to you, and then maybe we can start talking about issues in the church, or even people that's not in the church will come to church, because they'll say everybody at church thinks they perfect. No, we're not perfect. We've been through things. It's just that we have cleaned our life up. But in order to get clean, that means you have to once be dirty. So I'm not afraid to tell my story. I'm not ashamed to tell my story. And I hope that other people feel the same way and start, if I can be an example to other young people, then everything that I've been through was worth everything that I've been through.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
My advice is not so much to people as it is to the church as a whole. Pastors, anybody who's listening to us today, make sure your pastor is educated on domestic violence. Pastors, after they're educated, they need to help make an escape plan. Now, I'm not saying he has to put money aside for somebody that's trying to get out of a situation or whatever, but have the information readily available to domestic violence shelters or any kind of thing that can help that person get out of their situation. When a person has finally said enough and they're ready to go, they need to be able to go. Because if they're blocked in any way, it'll be real easy for them to go back. So we need to have some kind of strategy in church, in place, ready, so that if somebody is willing to come and say, hey, this is happening to me, I need help, we have to be able to help. As I said earlier this evening, the church was the heart of a community. And I use past tense because we're not anymore. We're a joke. Christians are a joke. We're a punchline. We have to do better as Christians. We have to. It's our job. We're supposed to be spreading the gospel. I don't have to sit down and tell you love is this, love is that, speak out in Ephesians or talk to you about Job or whatever for you to know I'm a Christian. My actions should tell you I'm a Christian. The way I behave, how I treat you, how I speak to you should all let you know that I'm a Christian. So I should be emanating it so much that you meet me on the street and you go, I don't know what this girl got, but I gotta get some of it. We're not like that anymore. We have to do better. I charge everybody on this panel and everybody that's listening with doing better as Christians. Bite your tongue sometimes. Sometimes you gotta just pull it. I'm gonna tell you, I got teeth print all in my tongue. All the time. Because sometimes, especially now, my daughters are in their early 20s. Y'all saw that woosah? They're in their early 20s. So we're all transitioning. We're transitioning from being little girls or teenagers to being grown women, and how much help to provide, how much to step in, when to step out. I had it in my head when they turned 18, I'm done. I'm good. They'll be off to college, in the service or at work, whatever. I had no idea. And then on top of it, my husband and I were so smart that we waited until our youngest was starting high school and we had another baby. So we started all over again. We have a 5-year-old. We have a 25-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh, wow.
So, yes. My grandbaby is 4 years younger than my son. So, I say all that to say, we do have to do better. I'm learning now how to be a parent to adult children. I'm looking at them, how I raised them, and I don't do some of the things I did with them with my younger children. As Christians, that's where we should be at now. We see what's not working. People are leaving church. People are becoming agnostic. People are becoming atheists and everything because they don't believe. They don't believe because we're not teaching them. We're not showing them. We're not giving our testimony, as Sister McCann said. I got a promotion at work and I got it bottled up. I'm not telling you how I got it. Because God forbid she come on the job and she, get the same promotion or do better than me. We got to do better. We have to do better. All the way around the board. But as far as this goes, we have to make some kind of evacuation plan. We have to educate ourselves. And if you really don't know the effects that spiritual abuse can have, if you haven't seen it, look up the documentary on Jim Jones. Look up the documentary on David Koresh down in Waco, Texas. Look up about Heaven's Gate. See the kind of damage that those ministers did. And these people that just wanted to believe, just wanted to love the Lord, just wanted to be in his light, were murdered by a man that they trusted. In the case of Heaven's Gates, it was by a man and a woman. And when Heaven's Gate came out, the internet was new. So they were able to reach far more people than Jim Jones was able to with a megaphone or whatever. All these people wanted to do was believe. And they got caught up. We have to be louder than the secular outlets.
So I want to say on behalf of SWAT, thank you all tonight for participating in this roundtable. It is a much needed conversation. Um, and thank you guys for allowing our viewers to know that our spiritual leaders do not condone abuse of any sort. Domestic violence and spiritual abuse is something that we need to talk about, not just in our homes, but in our faith based communities. It's important to know that our leaders will do what they need to do to get the help that a person needs. We know that we're not perfect. The only perfect being that ever walked the earth was Jesus Christ himself. But we do know where to reach out to and who to reach out to if a person needs help. SWAT, we are an active organization bringing awareness, education, and prevention on domestic violence, against domestic violence to North Carolina and surrounding areas. As you can see, we have people on from all around. Not only that, um, SWAT is working really hard to bring a leadership program to educate our leaders on what domestic violence is, what numbers in your local area to contact, what steps to take, um, and who you can contact. Our members are all around North Carolina, so that's a blessing. We're not just in one particular area. If for any reason anybody want any additional information on SWAT, all our information is scrolling at the bottom. Our organization is survivorswiththetestimony.org. If you want to donate, you can do it through Cash App or you can do it on our website. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and our handle is SWAT 2020. But again, if there's someone watching this that's going through any form of abuse, let us help you develop a safety plan. I wish that I can tell you that if you just walk out today, you're safe and your life is, will be wonderful. That don't happen. I hate to be the barrier of bad news, but we can help you get your protection order. But I want you to keep in mind that's just a piece of paper. That's why it's important to develop a safety plan. If you're thinking about leaving, get your important documents together. Get your children's birth certificates, your social security cards, your medical records. Get your medications together. Get your list of medications with the strength, the dose, whatever it is. Get that information together. So when you do have to do an escape, you'll have your most important items with you. Also, with the pandemic in place, as we all know, a lot of us are funded either by ourselves, government funding. A lot of that was cut off when the pandemic happened. So I will say to anybody, start putting money aside if you know that you need to go. Um, no organization, we will all pull together, we will network together. That's what this is all about. But the key to it tonight is just bringing awareness, letting you know it's not okay. Abuse is not okay in any form or fashion. So again, I want to say to the panelists, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your night to help us spread awareness. And everything will be available on YouTube, podcast, all social media. So, and we will send you guys some links. But again, thank you to our viewers for coming on. And you guys be blessed and have an awesome night.
Good night.